What's up, guys? Welcome to Totally Explained. Today I'm breaking down everything you need to know about the Israel-Palestine conflict. Now there's a couple things we need to note before we get started. One, this conflict has very little to do with religion. It's mostly about land, who has it and who controls it. And second, this conflict has not been going on for thousands of years. It's only been about 100 years, so let's start at the beginning. From the late 1800s to World War I, the Ottoman Empire controlled what's known today as Israel-Palestine, except back then it was largely occupied by Arabs and it was called Palestine. Now during that same time in Europe and other parts of the world, a lot of Jewish people started really encompassing this idea of Zionism, which is a form of Jewish nationalism. They thought they needed a land of their own, so a lot of Jews immigrated to Palestine. The Ottoman Empire fell after World War I, so Britain came down to govern Palestine from World War I to World War II. Now, from the Ottoman Empire to World War I to World War II, tensions between the growing number of Jews and the Palestinians keep increasing about who the land belongs to. Palestinians were there first, but the Jewish people believe it's God's designated land for them. After World War II, Britain let the newly created United Nations deal with the rising tensions down in Palestine. The UN split Palestine. They gave half of it to the Jewish people and called it Israel, and they gave the other half to Palestinians and called it Palestine. But the city of Jerusalem, which holds sacred sites for both people, was deemed a special international city meant to be shared between the Israelis and the Palestinians. The Palestinians started a war against the Israelis in 1948, the same day that Israel declared itself a nation. Well, Israel won that war and took control of part of the land allocated to the Palestinians. There was another war in 1967, which lasted 6 days. In that time, Israel took control of all of the land designated for Palestinians, along with part of Syria and a piece of Egypt called the Sinai. 10 years later, Israel gave the Sinai back, but maintained control of all of the areas designated for the Palestinians. Those areas are known today as the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. In the 1990s and early 2000s, Palestinians held two major uprisings in attempts to gain independence from Israel, both of which were incredibly violent on both sides. After the second uprising, Israel decided that Palestinians were unable to govern themselves, so it put up walls and security to make sure that most Palestinians didn't go anywhere without Israeli supervision. This is the current state of the Israel-Palestine conflict. Palestinian territories are walled off and monitored by Israeli military. Through all of this, though, the city of Jerusalem has been able to maintain its international status, so Palestinians and Israelis live there and acknowledge it as their capital. Ultimately, each group wants the other off their land so that they can become a recognized independent nation. In December of last year, President Trump recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital, meaning he sees it as belonging to the Israelis, not a shared space between the Palestinians and the Israelis. Now, the United States has an embassy in Jerusalem. A lot of world leaders condemned this move, but some supported it. Israelis are happy because it means parts of the world are starting to recognize them as an independent nation. But the Palestinians don't like this at all because they think the land belongs to them and that parts of the world are ignoring who they are. As far as the potential for peace between Israel and Palestine, talks have gone on and off for the past few decades, and as of right now, there are no current peace talks happening. This was the bare minimum of the conflict, but if you learned something new or just love Minute with Mads, the best way to thank me or any other content creator is to share our pages. So please share Minute with Mads with your friends. Thank you so much for being here, and if you have questions, you know what to do.